What's up, everybody? It's Matt Johnson. We're back with another episode of Real Estate Uncensored. This is the place where you get actionable ideas, insight, and inspiration to turn your real estate career into a life of freedom. We have no guests. We are off the hook today because we've got the evil bald ninja back with us again today. Gene Volpe is here. We've got the junior grandmaster in the co-pilot seat where he so belongs. He's looking sharp. He's got his whiteboards in the background, so we are ready and raring to go. We're talking about content today and how to actually build an audience so that you're not talking into the void. Thank God we don't do that here on Real Estate.
So, wait, what'd you say?
First of all, Gregory, what's up today?
What up, Matthew? It's been so long since I got to see your smiling face. Except for I did get to see that very funny. You did the 10-year photos comparison, and Nick Sakis went to town on that.
That was great.
From homeless to heartthrob, and then me
really
crazy in the upper corner going, Greg McDaniel got arrested yet again.
That was the best part of that. I loved that so much. I want to get a giant. If it wasn't super narcissistic to have a picture of me in my apartment, I would have that blown up life size just for that little bit in the top left about you getting arrested again, because the picture was so perfect for that.
It was so perfect. I know exactly where I took that photo. I took it at the Inman event, and I was horsing around with some friends. Was that Inman? Yeah, I think that was Inman, or was that when you and me? But I remember the whole thing, and I was like, that's fucking hilarious. I mean, but knowing you, but you weren't obviously homeless. You were just a musician, which is next to homeless.
Yeah, exactly. It was one step up. Believe me, it was a half a step.
Homeless to heartthrob, McDaniel gets arrested again. Nick,
what do you mean
again?
You that. What's that mean again?
The title. That was just the title.
No. I don't think so. Again usually means it happened once.
I know. It's alluding to the fact that I was like some crazed, air quotes, big, huge, gigantic air quotes on this, like celebrity who continually gets in trouble with the police and the law, drugs, the whole thing.
Well, we know you're a celebrity. What did you get arrested the first time for? That's what I'm trying to get to.
Oh, of course. Like everybody. Like every good celebrity. And then a DUI times 3.
Stop hitting people.
Well, the paparazzi gets in my way, man. I gotta fuck them up. You gotta learn how to respect my bubble, my personal space.
Oh, all right. My God. Oh, that's funny. Okay. Well, we're going to talk about content today and how to build an audience. We'll get to that in a second because, Gene, part of the reason that we were talking about this is because you're launching 2 different podcasts. What's going on here? What's going on?
Yeah, I'm not really supposed to say anything yet because, well, no, that's not really true. I can say anything I want.
It's clearly on your mind.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. No question. I mean, so we're launching 2. One's called The Marketing RV. I got that with a co-host. And then we're doing another one called Barbells and Brews, which is going to be from the gym that I go to. And that one's going to be a little wild. That's going to be fun. And I get to drink beer while we do it, which is
really
sort of my goal in life, right? Work while you drink for a reason.
Yes, of course.
Isn't that what we're supposed to do?
After this, I'm going to a air quotes show prep meeting with my co-host for the radio show, and basically it's just we drink, talk shit, and do a little bit of work for about 3 hours. It's fucking fantastic.
So Matt, are you noticing a trend here? This is 3 times we've gone back to air quotes McDaniel. I would love to continue the air quotes trend for today if we could.
Oh, I'll do it.
Yeah,
just
let's
for
do
air
it.
quotes Eugene.
I love that. Well, listen, so you're going to what Matt was saying. So I think what we were talking about pre-show a little bit was, with marketing these days, it's almost like every single month you got to step your game up, right? And so one of the things we do is on our end for our business, we do something that's called content and engagement. And the engagement obviously is the end game where we can bring people in. How did you say it? Gathering. What did you say? Building an audience of people that want to what?
To get jiggy with it? What?
No. We were talking. I said in the beginning. Matt said we're going to talk about building an audience of people that want to listen to us or something.
Pay attention to you.
That actually pay attention.
See, I wasn't paying attention. So.
Oh my God.
You see, ba-dum-bump. Where's the sound effects? Ba-dum-bump. So the end goal for these guys, for when you're on social media now, is because it's so busy, is to start that conversation. So one of the ways we want to start the conversation is creating the content that people want to see. And so now I just don't see really, I mean, videos are great. I've been on the video kick for 6 years. You got to continue to do video. But I think these days another element that should be in your content toolbox is the podcast. And I know this is self-serving for Matt because this has a lot to do with his life and his business. But the reality of it is that Like, I just think it's kind of an amazing thing. I had somebody the other day ask me, like, what exactly is a podcast? And I was like, it's a radio show, really is what it is, except I can produce it. I don't need anybody behind the scenes. It's fairly inexpensive to do. You can do it with anybody you want. We did it from a local Italian restaurant the other night. They loved it. Like, it's kind of cool. And if you spin it the way you want to and the way you need to, you can incorporate things that you enjoy doing. So it becomes less of a job, more fun, but you're creating content that gets the engagement on the back that starts the conversations through your marketing. So this is like a big push for me this year, the podcast end of it.
Nice.
Well, how did you come up with these 2 podcasts? I mean, what sparked these?
Oddly enough, so the first one's called the Marketing RV, okay? And it's basically, I won't get into it, but R is for Lorraine Rinaldi and the V is for Gene Volpe. So the 2 hosts that are doing it. Lorraine has a background in radio, and we had been talking from a business. Actually, she was going to write my book, is the way it started. So I was doing interviews on having somebody write a book for me, and we started talking, and then out of the blue, she called me, and she was like, listen, you mentioned something about a podcast when we talked the last time. I want to start one up, and I want you to be my co-host. And I was like, yeah, dude, let's do it. And then at the gym, there's one of the coaches that was there approached me and was like, what do you think about a health and fitness podcast where we throw in a little bit of fun and some kind of off the beaten path type stuff? And I was like, let's do it, dude. So I'm taking on all comers right now. If anybody's got a podcast idea, call me. I have nothing but free time.
So your marketing business is going so well that you've given all the labor out to your minions, and you now just bask in nothing but free time. This is fantastic.
This is all I do. Look, it's Friday. My kids are home from school because it snowed here today.
Well, you had like a couple of flurries and then like the road shut down?
Dude, I think they canceled school at 5:25. We got the phone call this morning. Nothing like the 5:25 call knowing that your day is all messed up, right?
Yeah, no.
Because I got all kinds of stuff going, and it's like, well, they're home all day. So, and this is part of what I do, which is wonderful, the flexibility to be able to hang with them. So they're actually cleaning their rooms right now. We're going to get some productive stuff done.
Now you get them to clean your room. Now we're on to something.
No.
Never mind, not going there.
They're 13 and 10, so there's stuff in my room that they don't really need to see, right? Can we just leave it at that? Let's just leave it there.
Well, I assume somewhere in there, in your room, there must be beer sitting next to barbells. I mean,
my wife
just
is
makes
like,
sense.
why? My wife is like, why are you curling and drinking beer in bed?
Don't want to get buff, baby.
I'm getting ripped up.
Exactly.
So
All right.
let's talk about getting, Gene, so you're talking about a podcast for people that, are like, wow, podcast, that's a really kind of an intimidating thing to start, and I don't know what to do, don't know what to talk about. Matt will tear this apart, but that's fine. If you wanted to baby step it, and Matt, I'd actually like to get your opinion on this, is the app Anchor. You can download it, you literally just talk into your phone, and then it can upload into iTunes and Stitcher and everything else. Is that accurate, Matt, or am I misrepresenting that app?
No, it's accurate, but that's not the baby steps that I would recommend.
Baby step for me, big papa.
Yeah, I mean, I've listened to a podcast that's recorded that way, and it's fine. The guy literally is talking into his iPhone as he's walking, right? And it's just 10 or 15 minutes on the latest Instagram hacks or whatever. Fine. But if you took that same content and you recorded a video about it and you put it up on YouTube first, and that was your baby steps, I mean, think about what happened to you and me, Greg, when we first put our stuff on YouTube.
Lots of good stuff. People started watching and following. They found us in the middle of the night when the neighbors were being crazy and all the other crazy stories that we've heard.
Exactly. So the problem right now is that YouTube is an infinitely better search engine for content that people are looking for than iTunes. So just getting a podcast onto iTunes doesn't really solve anything. That's just a place where they can go. And I was sitting around yesterday looking at Tim Ferriss's blog and found an article that linked to a podcast episode of his that I wanted to go listen to. So I'm like, okay, so I click on the link from his website. It has to open up one application. Then I have to click another button. Then it finally opens up Apple Podcasts. Then I have to click 2 buttons to get it to download a freaking podcast episode. There was like 6 clicks between somebody finding a website and getting a podcast episode that I wanted, okay?
Oof.
Now, contrast that with finding something on YouTube or even having a website where you have your YouTube videos embedded. They don't even have to leave. They don't have to leave your own website. And then if they click a YouTube video, it just guess what it does? It opens up their YouTube app on their phone and it starts playing the video. So if I was going to take baby steps into that arena, I would do exactly what Gene's been talking about for a long time, which is do community-oriented, events-based videos, keep them short, and put them on YouTube, and then link to them everywhere you have a social audience, and just drive people to YouTube. Because YouTube is much better at serving up your videos to people who are looking for stuff in your area or looking on your topic and serving you up as a recommended video than iTunes is of serving up your podcast when somebody's searching for a similar podcast.
So
interesting.
Real quick, I want to make a statement and then ask you a question pertaining to what you just said. So the first one is, you're right about iTunes. Like, I don't go to iTunes to search for podcasts. I go to iTunes to listen to a podcast that I found somewhere else. Right?
Exactly.
Like, I know when I go there, I'm listening to the Tim Ferriss show. It's not like I'm looking for podcasts real estate related. Like, I already know when I go there, I'm listening to RU. You know what I mean?
No,
Like,
and if you were an agent and you had a problem with marketing, iTunes is the last place you'd go to just put in real estate marketing ideas, expecting to get a useful response. Whereas with YouTube, that's the thing that people type in there, and they type it in just as much to YouTube as they do to Google, and they expect to get useful content for that. That's where they are looking for that content.
And so to that point, this is the question. So you talk about doing YouTube. Would you start with just a straight up YouTube live stream of your podcast, or would you pre-record it, or both? Like, how does that work?
Either or. So Greg, you and I started on Google Hangouts, which was the equivalent of what is now a YouTube live stream. And to me, what I felt, this is totally conjecture and opinion, but I felt like YouTube pushed us a little bit more than if we had just recorded stuff behind the scenes and thrown it up on YouTube. Because YouTube wants the eyeballs. Now, I feel like we do. I feel like we got a boost from the fact that we were live on YouTube from the beginning.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you. They wanted to promote it. It was their content. And also, I think that after hearing your rationale, and I think it makes a ton more sense to do a YouTube channel, for not to mention the fact they get to see who you are. And they get to bond together. Oh, I know that guy, or I know that gal. Like, I like that face, or they look like someone I could trust, or whatever. It's just that familiarity of the other human being. A lot of folks say, well, I can't do video, it's too scary. No, it's not scary, guys. Let's be honest. It's not that scary. You make it scary by saying it's scary. And there's been a lot of people that say, well, I just want to do my own thing, and I'm just going to create my own content. And they never actually ask the audience of what they want to hear. I mean, Matt, you and I, when we started, I think you and I just kind of looked at each other and we're like, I don't know, man. We like hanging out. We like fucking around. We're just going to throw some content up there, and, we'll do some hardcore training and see what people like.
Yeah,
I was going to say,
responded to that. We did.
Well, we didn't know if anyone was going to listen.
No, we didn't know if anybody's going to listen, but we didn't just go, hey, we're going to do what we're going to do, and whoever comes and listens, listens. We did not blindly go, hey, we're going to jump on, and we're just going to be crazy and talk about nonsense and expect people to sit through that.
No.
You and I started by doing very in-depth, very tactical sales and marketing training, because that was the gap.
Yep.
So, and part of that was because when I looked at the search keywords that most agents were putting in for help in their career, I have a whole spreadsheet laid out of hundreds of search terms, and that influenced the way that you and I did our initial episodes in our first 6 months. Now, we could have carried that even further, Greg. You and I could have kept doing the original vision for the Monday and Wednesday episodes were shorter, very focused, content-packed 20-minute episodes.
Yeah.
I could not keep you under 45 minutes, right? So we ended up, I tried. I failed as a Greg Wrangler, but that was my original vision for that, was to come up with very short, focused episodes that people would find on YouTube because they were around a very specific topic that people were looking for. Right. So even though I couldn't keep the format the way I wanted to, going through and really looking at what people were searching for online, it did influence the way that we did the show initially. It influenced what we talked about. It influenced the fact that we ended up taking questions from people on Facebook and from Facebook groups and covering them in the shows. And then when I was doing a better job of this, I was actually going back into the Facebook groups to the people that submitted the questions and telling them, hey, we covered your question in our latest episode today. Here's the link to go watch it, right? And if I was really focused on continuing to grow the audience for this show in an active way, I would be doing that every single time with every person whose question we pulled for the show, right? So it's engaging and talking to people about their real questions. So I think where a lot of people are making the mistake now with things like podcasting and YouTube videos is they're basically saying, I'm going to do something that's fun for me, and I want to build a huge audience. Those two things are usually incompatible.
Why are they
Right?
incompatible? Because you think your audience wants to hear something because you're interested in it, and in reality, the audience just doesn't care. Is
Well,
that the disconnect there?
either A, they don't care, or B, they're getting that content from someone else already. Right? So let's say you love Joe Rogan and you want to do a Joe Rogan-esque type show for real estate. Well, that's awesome. The problem is there's already a Joe Rogan.
Yes, there is.
So
You're big on that. You're big on that, though.
What's that?
Well, you're big on somebody controlling the niche, right? Like we have this conversation.
It's not
before.
control. It's not control, right? It is the way human beings categorize things. We have a mental bucket for everything, and we only have room for 2 or 3 brand names in each bucket. So in the bucket of podcasts I listen to for fun, I only have a couple of things. I have Adam Carolla's show, I have the Adam and Dr. Drew show, and maybe one other that I'm willing to try out, and that cycles through, right? So I have very limited, I have maybe 10% of my fun podcast listening time is even available for somebody's new show. Now, if I have a very specific problem in my life or a very specific problem in my business, I might go and be open to finding some other type of content, and that's a different bucket, right? So let's say I'm having trouble
real estate bucket.
recruiting in my business, real estate. Let's say it's sales skills, or let's say I want to build my team. So I want very, very specific information about recruiting and hiring. That's a whole other bucket.
Sure.
And if you happen to have a Joe Rogan flair, but you're talking about the things that I really care about right now, yeah, let's do it, man. Right? And I might keep listening to that show. But you need something like that to break through. You can't just come along and say, I'm like the Joe Rogan of real estate, but there's already a Joe Rogan. And just saying I'm the Joe Rogan of real estate might not be specific enough for them to put you into a different category and go, okay, this guy is the king of that category. I've got Joe Rogan for my pleasure time over here, but I've got a business problem that I'm going to listen to for him. And the fact that he also has a good sense of humor and they have good banter and all that stuff like that is a bonus. That's what you're looking for. You're looking for the open ground. You're looking for the open space.
This is my contention with you, right? This is the only thing because we've had this conversation before. And I think it's a great, really healthy conversation, right? Because like you said, there's already a Gary V. Gene, what are you trying to do? I'm not trying to be Gary V. I do get that once in a while where people will say to me, do you know who you remind me of? And I'm like, yeah, I know, and that's only because of my energy. Like I know that. Okay. It has nothing to do with my bank account. And I also know that, right? But my thing is I don't want to stop people from doing it because there's I would not do it because I'm worried that people are going to be like, well, there's already a Gary V and you remind people of Gary V. I don't care about that because I've also noticed through my travels that there's a billion people that have no idea who Gary V is. So if they're listening to me and they love my content, I guess here's my point. I don't want the concept of what you said to stop people from giving this a shot just because there's already somebody like them in their space. Does that make sense?
I agree. Here's the secret to that. It's 1 + 1 = 3. And what I mean by that is it's not about taking Gary V head on, right? So Greg, you and I don't take Gary V head on. Why?
No.
Because we took what Gary V is doing and saying, let's say on social media, and we added in real estate, right? 1 + 1 = 3, right? So you can take the same content that someone like a Gary V talks about, but then when you tailor that and you customize it to a specific industry, that makes it different, right? That's just an example. Now, let's say you're going up against somebody in real estate, so real estate isn't specific enough. Great, that's fine. Now let's drill down one level deeper. And you go, okay, well, what can I take that's real estate plus something else and make it even more specific, right? So it's not about taking on, like, if just because there's a Gary V, you can't talk about how to succeed on social media. You just have to take what Gary V's doing, if you like that, add something else to it so that the whole is greater than the sum of its parts, right? It's creative addition. That's all creativity is anyway. It's taking two things that are probably out there already and combining them in a unique way. Right. But you just have to acknowledge that we're in an area where a lot of people have their favorites already, and us just kind of and One of the other things that I feel like we struggle a lot with is that we all have varied interests, and we all are a complete person. We're not just a real estate person. We're not just a marketing person. Gene, you've got interest in all kinds of things outside of real estate, and that includes investing, which we don't even talk about on this show hardly, right? So you're a marketer. Right. You work with real estate people, but not just real estate people, and you do investing, and you're a football fan, and you love all these other things. The problem is people come and they try to create this form of content where they can just show up as their whole selves and talk about anything under the sun that they're interested in, and they expect their audience to be interested in that stuff too.
Yeah,
the problem is we are not the audience, right? So the odds of this is why I don't talk about music all the time, because the odds of people being huge Real Estate Uncensored fans and also being huge fans of Tool, A Perfect Circle, Porcupine Tree, and all the whacked out progressive rock bands that I listen to, it's a very small audience, right? So I don't talk about music a lot.
Man.
I love music. I would love to hop on here and talk about music all day, but the audience isn't here for that, right? And so I have to cut a deal with myself that I'm not going to talk about that other side of me, because that's not super valuable to this audience that shows up to this form of content for a very, very specific reason.
No, that makes sense.
Right. Yeah. So it's one of those things where you have to be willing to cut a deal with yourself, not to not be who you are, not to be different, not to restrict yourself, but you have to sacrifice certain parts of who you are and certain things that you might want to talk about to deliver what the audience is interested in out of your specific piece of content. Because the more focused you get, the more people understand exactly what mental bucket you're trying to fit into with your content, the more they can go, oh, I go to Gene for this. I go to Gene for inspiration on what videos I should do this week.
Right.
Gene's my guy for that. Gary Vee's talking about all this stuff, and he's talking about this and that, and he's like, yeah, I need to be on Snapchat all the time, and he's speaking to every industry under the sun. I get it. Gary Vee, I need to be on social media. But I go to Gene when I need to know what to talk about in my real estate videos this week. Right? That's how you play in the same sandbox as a guy like Gary Vee and differentiate yourself. Is you get more specific, more focused, because Gary Vee is speaking in front of 10,000 people. Gary Vee's got to speak to everybody. Gene, you don't have to. That's how you play in that sandbox, and that's how you build an audience, right? People know what to expect.
And here's what's funny too. I think the natural evolution of that is kind of funny. So what ends up happening when you nail your niche and you become the expert in that niche is you get to a point where you can talk about anything. Right? Because once I have my following of 50 million people, I can listen, what's Joe Rogan's show about? Whatever he's talking about that day.
Yes. But how did Joe Rogan get famous in podcasting?
UFC. Oh, right. No, that's what I mean. So you have to start at that level where you're like, you become big in a certain area. And he's the UFC sideline reporter guy, and he was a comedian too, so he had that, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
So you become that, and now he's gotten to a point where he's so friggin' famous because so many people listen to him for the UFC that he can talk about whatever the hell he wants. And the other part too, I always think is funny, is like people
but remember,
saying,
the core, either the core changes or the core never goes away. Right. So let's say Joe Rogan stops talking about UFC. Right. He's never stopped talking about UFC.
No.
He's never left the core, and that audience still comes to him for that. Even though he he interviews Jordan Peterson one day, and then, the Japanese decluttering expert the next day. Right. People know that if there's a big UFC fight, guess what Joe Rogan's talking about this week?
Yeah. And he has actually, if you follow his podcast, there's always an episode. Like before we got on this thing, I was actually listening. Let me look at it right now. Episode 54, the JRE MME show number 54 with Din Thomas. It was basically 3 hours of him and this other guy talking about UFC stuff.
Oh, there you go. Yeah, so either the core changes or you never ever leave your core, right? So people put you into that mental bucket and you never leave it, right? So Greg, you and I have had endless conversations, not debates, but just conversations about what do we do with this show? Because there's other things we could be talking about. Greg, you and I could go all day on mindset and goal setting and general success stuff that a lot of other people would benefit from. And the thing is, we have other people outside of real estate listening to the show. We have real estate agents telling people who are in other industries to go and listen to our show. So that's been a real conversation. Like you and I could have a real conversation about expanding the audience for the show. But
we also thought about even changing the name and changing a lot of other stuff to get a wider audience.
Yeah.
But then again, going back to your whole base conversation, then that would alienate potentially our base that has got us to where we are now. So it's like, why shoot the gifted horse in the mouth or whatever the fuck that saying is?
Yes.
Kick the horse in the mouth or whatever.
Don't be shooting horses.
I love horses. I ride the horses. I love the horses. What I'm saying is like this. I mean, like Gene, you're doing 2 different podcasts, right?
Yeah.
I've asked Matt for years, literally, Matt, let's do a show about general real estate stuff, and he would rather shoot himself in the face with a shotgun and then write himself a thank you note for it. But I mean, I wanted to do it, so I went out and I found another person, 2 people to go do the general audience thing, and I don't think that talking about the stuff that I talk about on the radio show would be content that the audience for Real Estate Uncensored would appreciate. So I agree with Matt, and I agree with what he's saying here. But you have to be audience sensitive. Not that you have to not curse, but just be courteous to what they want to hear about. So Gene got me hooked on a show called a conspiracy show called Tinfoil Hat. I'm just waiting for those fucking shows to come out, dude. I'm like, oh, come on, man, give me some more crazy stuff.
It's so funny, dude. But you got to clarify with people that you're not you have to say to people, I don't believe it.
It's just entertaining as hell to listen to.
It is.
You listen to it and you just get your mind moving in a different way. But if Sam Tripoli, the host of that show, all of a sudden turned around and says, today we're going to be talking about how to knit. You're going to take your needle and you're going to go over the top and then under the. I'd be, what? No. And I would cancel the podcast, never listen to it again, because that's not the base. That's not who's listening. And so just understand. And I mean, what I would do is ask people, yes, tinfoil hat, Howard. The tinfoil hat. Is it the tinfoil hat or a tinfoil hat?
Nah, I don't know. Sam Tripoli.
Yeah, Sam Tripoli. He's a comedian as well. He's hilarious. But I mean, the point is he's friends with Rogan and the rest of those guys. But I mean, just start looking find a hole and then fill it. What is not being given to someone or something or an audience that you feel could be beneficial, and then talk to the people in that audience. But hey, if I was to do a show about blah blah blah, what do you think about that? And get their real time opinion, because podcast talk, it takes money, it takes time. I mean, Matt and I have put tens and tens of thousands of dollars into running this show and hundreds of hours. It is, I mean, behind the scenes when we were first getting going, it was labor intensive like you wouldn't believe. But, we really enjoyed what we were doing, and we still do. But we're at this point where it's running, like it has a life of its own, and it's going, and we have the people and the processes and everything else in place. So when you start a podcast, when you start finding that audience and you start all this, just know that you're going to be an epic dumpster fire in the beginning. I mean, go back and listen to our first shows. I mean, Matt, wouldn't you agree? I mean, we've talked about literally taking those first shows down because they are so bad.
Sadly, some of them have the most views of all of our stuff.
I know.
Which is very, very distressing. We have absolutely talked about taking those old videos down because they're terrible.
I mean,
the bottom line is that you'll find your groove. But yeah, I mean, this is, it's when you're creating content, especially for anyone that's in the audience who's in real estate, and you're thinking about podcasting or YouTubing or whatever, at the end of the day, this is not an art form. It has a purpose, and that's to get people onto the calendar that want to meet with you to buy or sell what you have to do, right? Yeah. So whether for Gene, for you, that's your marketing services. For me, that's my marketing services. Greg, for you, that's a house. Anyway, but the point being, you want appointments from prospects on your calendar. And the problem is that if you set out and you pour all of your time and energy into content, and even if you built up an audience, if that audience doesn't end up buying, that is a sucky feeling.
Yeah.
Right? That does not feel good. Right? If you build up an audience and then you don't sell them something that they resonate with, that's a sucky feeling. Right? So you may think you want to just put the art out there and do it for your sake, because you just want to talk about what you want to talk about and let the audience come. Even if the audience comes, if it doesn't help you sell more houses, you'll end up getting burnt out on it a lot faster. If it doesn't sell more marketing services, Gene, you'll get burned out faster, right? Like at the end of the day, it's got to do something. It's got to put money into your pocket. It's got to do what it's supposed to do from a business function. And to me, the more focused that you are, the better chance you have of it performing its function in your business. And that is enjoyable, even if you don't have as big of an audience listening or watching. Does that make sense?
Makes total sense, but I have a caveat for that.
Yes, go ahead.
The second podcast that I'm doing called Barbells and Brews, If I'm drinking beer, I don't really care if it fills the funnel with clients or not. Like,
Yes.
we work out, we drink new beers.
That's when we've left the realm of business and we've entered the world of art. It's something you do strictly for pleasure. You know what I'm saying? It's an art form.
Yeah.
You do it strictly for pleasure. It's like if I put out a 10-minute long instrumental piano solo piece, great. Most people are not interested. But if I do it for myself and I don't care about the outcome, then that's great. It's art.
Here's what's interesting about that. Even like by proxy, the people that know you or find you that actually like music and then like your talent is still more likely to do business with you.
Yeah.
Right?
I agree.
Right? I mean, if I hated music and hated your voice, it might turn something off of me. So when you come to me and go, that podcast, I want to market it for you. I'll be like, nah, it's cool, dude. I'm good. Versus when you mention bands like Tool and A Perfect Circle, I'm honed in because that's me. I get it. Like I'm in. I like it. I like you. So all these things that I see from you on the weekly podcast that we're doing together, the emails that I get, 100 ways to get on 100.
How to get on 100 podcasts
this week? 100 podcasts this week. That talks to me, right? So I'm more likely to do business with you, even if some of the stuff you're doing, like talking about music. We've had conversations over Instagram about albums. You know what I mean? So it draws us closer, and it's more likely that I'm going to do business with you in the future because we have the same similarities, same likes, that type of stuff. Even if you're posting about music because it's your art form and not your business lineup, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Well, and again, the 80-20 rule applies to everything, right? So if you're talking about putting out content, you want 80% of it probably to fall into what people are expecting, extremely focused, give them exactly what they know what to get from you. And then 20% can be the other stuff that you want to talk about that doesn't have to fall into that same mental bucket, right? So same thing with social media. My Instagram account is 80% business and 20% personal. Great. So like those personal posts give me and Eugene a chance to connect over stuff that you and I didn't even know we had in common.
Yep.
But I'm not trying to build a music following on that same Instagram channel.
Right.
That channel is for business, and maybe 20% of it is personal. It's a little sprinkling on the top. It's a light dusting of personal stuff on top of the very focused business content that you know what you're going to get when you come to my Instagram account. Same thing for a podcast or a YouTube series. People have to know what to expect, and then 20% of it maybe is bonus and helps them connect with you on a deeper level. So for anyone that's in the audience that's in real estate, for example, talk about real estate, talk about whatever you're passionate about. That could be nonprofit events, that could be local schools, or it could be wine.
Wine? What?
So it could be real estate and wine. It could be real estate and craft beer, Greg. Right? Because then because there's a huge audience of people out there who care about craft beer, and they all have houses, and they should all work with you. And yes, that does give them a deeper way to connect with you. So Greg, if you did a real estate show from scratch that was for the general public, but what you were really doing is going out there and going around to all the craft brewery places, and the focus was on craft brews and 20% was on real estate, that would serve your purposes much better than talking about 50% real estate and 50% craft brew.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, I'm going to a craft brewery today.
Well, I expect a video out of you. There needs to be a live video out of you.
I will do.
Right.
I will do.
So we call
something.
shaky cam.
Yeah, this is my second beer, right?
That's right.
Sure, right, sir. So let's talk about. Okay, so we're kind of covering some of the content here, but let's talk about for a lot of folks that may not be following the trends for social media. Matt, you and I, Gene, a lot of us. I mean, the Social Media Examiner, they all jumped on the train of Facebook Lives. Like this is the end all be all, the godsend of place to put live videos, right? This is where people are going to get a lot of traffic, and we're going to be seen by everyone. We will quickly, aka over a couple of years, learn that after Facebook's numbers were actually real and they weren't being blown up and fabricated, that the viewership and engagement with the people on Facebook Lives is significantly lower, like 1% consumption rate. This is the numbers that Social Media Examiner did, and they likened it to this. So if you guys are like, okay, well, I'll start doing this stuff on Facebook. Well, you might have a little bit of a harder time. So this is a theory that they proposed, and I've thought about, and I want to get the two marketers' minds here on this. So they say that like Facebook Live videos is kind of like when you're driving down the freeway and you see the sign for McDonald's or whatever else on the sign, you look at it really quick and you take action, or you just let it go by, right? And then YouTube is kind of like where your home base should be. So my thought and theory is this. If you guys really want to start getting some eyeballs on your content, on your podcast, on your videos, on your properties you have listed, my recommendation would be to do this. Do a coming soon, air quotes. I did the air quotes just for you, Gene.
Thank you.
You're welcome. I'm sensitive like that.
Yeah. Gene with air quotes. if that is in fact your real name, sir.
Yes. Tinfoil what? He's hiding in plain sight, everybody. There's Jimmy Hoffa.
That's right. So coming soon.
So coming soon. So it'll be like, hey guys, it's Greg McDaniel. Hey, I got a brand new property coming on the market. It's an amazing home. I have a full video right over here on YouTube. Go check my YouTube channel out, and I'll be able to show the whole home to you. Go look for Greg McDaniel on YouTube, and I'll see you guys there. Have a great day. Thanks for watching. Just short, punchy, fast, whatever, minute or so or less. Then you bring them over to the YouTube channel where you can, start getting people you can build watch lists. You can build an audience. You can interact with people's conversations and comments on the videos in one hub. And it's a searchable index. It's Facebook. I mean, it's in the ether. It's in the newsfeed. It's in the newsfeed. It's not in the newsfeed, right? It's very hard to find all that stuff. So if folks are going to start putting content out, either a blog, a vlog, a podcast, a video series, whatever, right? How would you convert you to? Gene, we'll start with you. How would you convert people, friends on Facebook, to avid YouTube followers?
Okay, I'm going to come back to that because I want to talk about the bigger issue. So remember, put that right here, because I want to come back to the bigger issue, which is how these platforms are tailored. So remember, from a logical perspective, that there's billions of dollars behind these platforms. And let's talk about Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube.
Mm-hmm.
And part of what they do in research and development is psychology, neurolinguistics, all this stuff. It's built. There is a big money reason and a psychological reason that Facebook is blue. I don't know what that is, but there is a reason. There's a reason why everything is laid out the way that it is, every single thing you see. And so what's interesting about it is the platforms are smart enough to be able to dictate to you how much time you're going to spend on that platform. So think about it from this perspective. I talk about long form and short form content. Mm-hmm. Short form is that quick blur, boom, bang, right? Long form is the television show. So Netflix would be long form. Instagram TV would be more of a short form. So Instagram is the shortest form of the three we just mentioned. So that's built for you to fly through it, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that's why they have 1 minute videos, right? Facebook has teetered between long form and short form. Long form worked for a long time. It's starting to work less now. It's more short form content because of the way that you use Facebook, which is faster. You're more likely to swipe faster, not as fast as Instagram, but certainly faster than YouTube. You with me so far?
Mm-hmm.
YouTube is where you're putting up your content because people these days go to Facebook less often to watch a television show than they do on YouTube. When I go to YouTube, I'm there for a specific purpose. I know I'm there 6 to 12 minutes versus Facebook. I got a minute and a half, but I got to keep moving. Okay? Mm-hmm. So the long form is, now let's roll back to your question. Long form is I create my content like this 1 hour show that we're doing today. I splice that content up into shorter form pieces that I put on Facebook, and then I splice those up into shorter form pieces that I then sprinkle like a light dusting, like Matt said, all over my Instagram. But remember, there still needs to be a call to action across all of those to drive people back. Well, hey, you'd like to see it if you're looking at my stuff on Instagram. You'd like to see a longer clip of my open house? Join me over on my Facebook page. Hey, you'd like to see the whole video tour? Then you jump to YouTube, right? So you just take your long-form content, you chop it to shorter forms, you put it out onto the platforms that you need to put it out on where you have a presence, and then you watch the insights and data to determine what your base is looking at and telling you they want from you on that platform.
Interesting. So it goes right back to knowing what your audience is going to want to see and hear, and not just do it all willy-nilly and just be like, fuck it, I'm just going to be me, and if you don't like me, go kick rocks. It's like, okay, you got to be surgical about this.
Well, I think it becomes a science project in the beginning because you don't know what people are going to tell you. it sort of is willy-nilly. Like, throw out the long form, short form, quick hitters. Like you said, you were like 2 weeks ago or 4 weeks ago, we were talking about how your Instagram post with just the words, right? The picture with the words was getting more interaction than the other stuff. If you would have told me that 6 weeks ago, I would have said, bullshit, you're lying. It's not going to work that way. Because data across the country and across the world says it doesn't work that way. But your audience is wanting different things from you than they want from Matt over when he's in Nebraska, right? Like, so it changes, but it's based off of your bubble, and you got to figure out what your bubble works. So in the beginning, it's a little bit willy-nilly, and then you get surgical.
Yeah. I mean, I'm doing that right now on my Instagram. I mean, Matt's very, very business oriented on his. Gene, you're very business oriented, but you also throw some fun stuff in there. I've decided to make my Instagram more like a journal. Like, this is just a collage of life. And, you know, I don't know if I'm doing it right, but it's kind of it's fun for me. You know, would you guys recommend having multiple different Instagram accounts?
What's your core? I think it goes to what's your core, right?
Yeah,
So,
I guess so.
Right, because Instagram is not where your core audience is. This is another way for them to interact with you and see a different side of you, but the core is Facebook. The core is exactly what we're doing right here, right? Yeah. So I think that's one of the things where you can get away with different types of content on other platforms, but you do have to, if you're going to build an audience and give them what they expect and have them show up over and over again to get that from you, they do have to have one core place where you're driving them, where they know exactly what they're going to get. And that's kind of the primary place where you live. And then these other networks you can either use for different purposes or show different sides of yourself. So I think, Greg, for you, that's why Instagram is working, even though your Instagram is relatively unfocused, right? It's about your life rather than about business, because everybody knows they can go to Facebook and get the business stuff from you. So they know there's a predictable place, and Facebook has always been your core for as long as I've known you. And that hasn't, I don't see that changing anytime soon. But if it was going to change, I would say you'd probably have to change the content on your Instagram if you wanted that to be the main place people interact with you, because it's different. They're not getting the value that they expect from you on Facebook over on Instagram. They're getting something different from you.
Yeah.
Anyway. Here's an interesting piece of that too. Like, if you liken Greg, I know this is going to be bad. Oh, we're how did it get to be 50 minutes?
I know we're already 50 minutes in.
Because you two talked the entire first half, and I couldn't get a word in.
This was the best one yet. Then is that what he's saying? 80-20 rule. 80% of me and Matt is awesome. 20% of Greg is.
If you were close to me, I would just.
No, you won't. Listen, I don't care. Listen, I don't care if you show me on Instagram that you're taking boxing lessons. I will still knock your ass out.
Kickboxing. I'm going to kick you too. Don't you forget about that.
All right, so look, Matt's telling us to wrap it up. I'm done. Do your thing. Green.
Okay.
Just shuts up down. I'm done.
Exactly. All right, Gene, what's the best place to get a hold of you?
GeneVolpe.com. Hit me on my website, Facebook. I'm pretty easy to find. Just do a search on my first and last name. You'll get me.
Good. All right. Greg, best way to reach you?
How else are they going to find you? Not search your first and last name?
I don't know.
Anyways, go to bookmcdaniel.com. Guys, bookmcdaniel.com. What you're going to do there is you're going to go in, you're going to book a 30-minute conversation with me. You're going to talk about how to join my EXP family. Matt and I are building an organization, a group of amazing human beings across the country. It's not a team. We're not going to take any money from you. We're not going to charge you anything. What we're going to do is we're going to train you, support you, and uplift you to help you guys and connect you with the people that you're going to need to build your business to the next level. So join my EXP family, Matt's EXP family. Go to bookmcdaniel.com. Let's talk about the opportunities. Matt, how can they review us and give us 20,000 stars?
That's right. Well, that's easy. Apple Podcasts, or you can go to a place like Stitcher, Spotify, whatever. But quickly, speaking of supporting, just want to mention that WiseHire supports the show. That is an easy way. They streamline the hiring process and provide the best candidates out there. Every one of them is screened through the DISC assessment. So we fully support them, and they support us in return. And we love what they're doing. We've had Jay, their CEO, on the show several times. If you guys go to Tony Robbins' website and you see the DISC assessment on Tony Robbins' website, Jay, the CEO of WiseHire, is the one that created that. So that's part of why we support that. They are the real deal. So guys, if you need to hire somebody, I don't care whether it's admin, if it's an agent, a salesperson, or a manager for your team, use WiseHire. It streamlines the process. They are amazing and fantastic. Dude. So go check them out.
So speaking of WiseHire, I actually just turned on my ad again for sales reps for my radio show. Mm-hmm. Dude, they turned it on yesterday. Bam! I got 3 people this morning. I got a call right after this show. Going to talk to Janet. She sounds amazing. She cannot wait to join the team. They are seriously good at what they do, guys. And it's not This is not propaganda. This is legitimate, real-world, boots-on-ground experience with their company. So go check them out.
Cool. All right, guys. That's it for us. Let's pick a. I'm looking around. I'm seeing some sort of.
You're in a new place. There's lots
this
of new
isn't a whole new place. There's all kinds of new colors. But you know what my favorite color is around here? Gray. There's lots of gray.
Just like your closet.
Exactly.
All right,
And your heart.
And he had a black little piece of coal for his heart. Remember that.
Yeah, exactly. Get it right, Gene.
Yeah. God.
All right.
Sorry.
His heart hasn't lightened up. Anyways, guys, we love you to pieces. Don't give me the fucking wrap up. I'm going to wrap up in a second. Guys, we love you to pieces. I love you. Matt doesn't love you because he doesn't want me to tell you I love you. But we're going to be back in the next show. And guys, if this has been helpful, please go out and share it with somebody else so that they can become a better agent just by listening to Matt and Gene ramble about nothing. Until the next show, guys, peace out, ninjas. We're gone.